How much would you pay to get a movie you wanted to see made?
Lights, camera, action.
So I recently came across something on YouTube that had been up there for about 2 years and I was completely unaware of it, and it had like 16 million views. Before we get into that, I need to explain one thing about myself. Besides movies being a big passion of mine, video games comes basically a close second, if not directly tied to it. So anytime there's a movie adaptation of a video game, I am super interested, even though I'm usually let down by, well, the fact that they usually suck. And if you go look at any movie adaptation of a video game, you might agree with me. There might be some out there that do okay. In fact, I kind of actually like the Doom movie, even though it doesn't really add up a lot of the aspects of the Doom games, but we'll ignore that for now. Now, the actual video I saw on YouTube is a short film called SCP Overlord. It's about 35 minutes long. Definitely worth the watch if you like kind of horror sci-fi. Now, if you don't know what SCP is, it is a random thing that kind of started on Reddit a long time ago of someone putting up the first SCP creature, kind of a creepy identification tag, and I don't remember exactly which SCP it was, but from there it spawned this huge subreddit that just grew and grew and grew to the point of creating its own website, creating a whole bunch of backstories for Foundation and for all these creatures. Now, SCP does stand for Secure, Contain, and Protect, and it is basically adapted into this fact that there's a secret kind of government organization that is patrolling and finding these cryptid-like creatures and securing them in a facility. Now, it got so popular that it actually started spawning off a whole bunch of video games, which if you go to any video game app like Steam or something like that, you'll find dozens of these adaptations along with some newer ones that look actually pretty promising. That brings me back to SCP Overlord. It was a small crowd-funded film, like I said, 35 minutes long, but it was actually quite well done. It's a simple premise. A SCP unit of soldiers is sent out to a farmhouse to raid a cult where they end up finding out there are some SCPs loose on the property, and it takes a creepy turn towards the end. I'm not going to spoil it. Like I said, it's only 35 minutes long. It's not going to take much of your time of your day, so go pull that up on YouTube. But this brought something else to my attention that I want to discuss, and it is crowdfunding movies. Now, this is not a new thing, and in fact, it's been going on for quite a while. In fact, if you're a fan of Super Troopers, you know that Super Troopers 2 was basically a crowdfunded project to get the sequel off the ground. And even though I didn't like it as much as the original, it did technically do better at the box office by almost $10 million. Now, the indie film company that is producing the SCP Overlord, they are called Evan Royalty. They are actually crowdfunding a new movie based off of the Stalker video game series. If you're unfamiliar, it's kind of a post-apocalyptic sci-fi horror-esque kind of video game, and they are adapting a movie out of it, and they crowdfunded it. Now, unfortunately for them, some of their other Kickstarter plans have not gone well, and they've actually had to abandon them and refund the money. But this one, they hit their goal. Their goal was about $255,000, and I think at time of recording, it was about $320,000 they had raised, and are hoping to release it next May. Now, when you think about crowdfunded films, I've seen quite a few of them after going through a list of them I could find. And actually, I was looking at them and realizing none of these are box office hits. None of these actually ever make it very much money. In fact, some of them are technically losses in money. And yet, for most fans and stuff like that, they are just fun to watch. So the big question I ask myself, is there a future in crowdfunding movies? Now, we know that our opinion actually has had some bearing on movies in recent times. If you all remember when Sonic the Hedgehog, which wasn't that great of a movie, but when it was first advertised, Sonic had very small, beady eyes and looked kind of horrific looking. And after backlash from the community of gamers and just people who know what Sonic's supposed to look like came through in such waves and droves, that the company went back and paid tons of money to have the entire CGI and effects of Sonic redone to give him the more classic look with the big eyes. Now, this showed us that we actually do have a little bit of power now. We can actually now control things. With the growth of social media, there is an easy way for the fans to directly communicate with the creators of these films. When they were going to replace James Gunn for the third Guardians of the Galaxy movie, obviously there was a lot of protest about it, and of course he ended up back on that project as director. So that power is something that we need to be using more thoroughly. Obviously, there are plenty of movies that get made that no one really cares to see made, or there are sequels that never get made that people want to see made, but the studio just goes, it won't break 100 million, there's no need for it. And yet obviously there's a niche of this aspect for crowdfunding to appear, for crowds to get involved and push forward projects that they believe in. But then the question comes down, what would you pay to help support a film you wanted to see? Now, Kickstarter is kind of nice because a lot of these campaigns that do fail and money end up getting refunded back to the people who paid into it, so the money is not usually kept by the people who had the Kickstarter originally. But nonetheless, the Kickstarter could still go through and get its actual minimum amount that it required, and the film may turn out to be completely horrible or just end up not fulfilling what we need. And at this point, it is the people who wanted the project to go forward who takes the loss rather than some big studio. Now, most studios think of big dollars and big budgets and what they want in return, whereas a lot of times these crowdfunded projects, like I said with Super Troopers 2, we all just wanted to see that sequel. Now, I personally think that it was too far beyond the original to make a successful sequel, and even though it did make 10 million more than its predecessor, I don't think it was as successful as a movie, because I think what Super Troopers, the original, turned into was a cult classic where box office numbers don't quite meet up when you look at the budget that made afterwards from DVD sales. Not to mention the original's budget was only 3 million versus the 13.5 of the second one, meaning technically it grossed more money. But let's take a look back at the video game franchise. Any of those out there who are video game fans have seen video game movies and have walked out of the theater thinking that was trash, or have rented it on Amazon or wherever you rent your movies, and you just thought, "Ow, I just wasted that money." Because, to be honest, a lot of the people in the film industry don't give two shits about video games. And therefore, the lack of passion there leads to a lackluster result in the product. So there would be a position for crowdfunding to exist for these movies so that the crowds and the fans of the actual source material could then push forward that product. In fact, the long-awaited Fallout series it's going to be created is actually being pushed out by the studio who created the Fallout video games. Now, this could be good, this could be bad, this could keep them into the spirit of what the video games hold, and yet this may not exactly be what the crowds want. This is why, once again, coming back to the audience, coming back to the fans, would seem more logical to do rather than just pushing forward because you go, oh, we have a popular IP, let's turn it into a movie or a TV series. Now, we're talking about two different things, either crowd-supported and crowd-funded. Obviously, crowd-supported is just someone going out and getting a lot of information from the fans and the audience of the source material to create something bigger and better, or the crowdfunding side, which is literally all of us putting up our money because we want to see this passion project go through. Obviously, like I said earlier, studios are big into the big budget and the big dollar signs. And a lot of those smaller films we see go straight to digital, which before used to be straight to DVD, and before that was straight to video. But these are those films that usually actually have high concepts and are great films. They just never got the backing because the studios never saw those dollar signs in their eyes when they saw this. This is where crowdfunding could come in to push those type of movies to get into theaters, therefore allowing that movie to make money so those directors and producers could go on to make more projects, which then increases the budget where they can go and make the film even better with better effects, better acting, better writing, the whole 9 yards. However, a lot of us aren't willing to give that because we see some of these crowdfunded films or some of these budget films and we kind of go, well, they're not good. Well, of course they may not be good because they can't compare to the big budget ones when the difference in cost is $320,000 compared to almost billions of dollars for some of these major franchises. But coming back to Evan Royalty and their SCP Overlord project, which showcased for me that in 35 minutes they were able to show me something that actually grabbed my attention and held me in for the entire time, which makes me think that with just over $250,000 they might be able to pull something off that's quite phenomenal for this Stalker series movie. So really the viability of crowdfunding is yet to be seen. I'm actually going to be following this project very closely because I want to see what they can do with that kind of money. Can they really produce something that is both visually entertaining as well as well written and well scripted and well acted? Face it, when you're working on a budget, you're not going to get the high value actors. You're not going to get the best CGI artists. You're going to be working within those constraints. And yet, we've seen plenty of movies that have been released out there that have done miraculous things with very little budgets. But I want to hear from you on this topic because this is something that, well, involves you, the audience, the fans. What would you say you would be willing to pay to support any project that you think of that might be coming out or ones that you would like to see come out? Is there a sequel to a movie you wish would have gotten made? Is there a movie that you heard about that got canceled in production that you would love to put money into of your own to see it finally come out to theaters? And lastly, do you think that crowdfunding and crowd-supported films have a future in the industry, or do you think that the big production companies will always reign supreme? Anyways, short video today. Just wanted to get that out because I thought it was fascinating. And like I said, discovering this film on YouTube that had been out for 2 years that I completely brushed by, and I'm a huge fan of the SCP universe, I was kind of blown away by it. Definitely go check it out. Like I said, it's SCP Overlord from Evan Royalty's YouTube channel. Go give them a follow if you're interested in seeing their development on the next film that they're coming out with that's based off the Stalker series, which is due to release in spring of next year. Thank you for watching the video. Hit that like, hit the subscribe button. Really helps out small channels like mine, gets me out to other people who would like to see this type of content. And get down in the comments. Like I said, let me know what your thoughts are on crowd-funded films and crowd-supported films, such as when we changed Sonic's appearance. And comment on any other videos you'd like to see basically brought to the channel, whether it's based off a movie, an actor, a director, or anything that you can think of that's related to film. I want to get into it all and just dive deep. And as always, you all have a wonderful day.